All right, so your company goes public, and all those years grinding it out for that startup finally pay off. You're set and you can just sit back and enjoy the ride, right? Well, not really. You now have to make one of the toughest decisions when it comes to your company equity. Should I sell or should I hang on? How much should I sell? The emotions behind this decision can hold you back. So let's look at it with a rational strategy. I'm Tony from Wealthfront, and today we're going to talk about what you should do with your company stock. We suggest you focus on these three main factors: risk, taxes, and your emotional well-being. So besides the risk associated with holding a concentrated position, it's also important to consider what level of risk you can take given your personal financial situation. No two people have the exact same appetite for risk. When you build a portfolio diversified among different asset classes, you avoid taking on the risk associated with a single stock and the risk that a single company might stumble. Over time, one asset class may rise and another may fall. By investing across asset classes, you can insulate yourself to some extent from the losses while tracking the broad performance of the overall markets. On the flip side, we have certainly seen an increased appetite for risk from investors, especially those younger and with longer time horizons. So I also get it if you say, let's let it ride. But you should also ask yourself this: how will I feel if my company's stock underperforms just the overall stock market? How will I feel if it overperforms the market? Those are two very different emotions, so I encourage you to walk through this beforehand and understand how you actually might feel. Now, second, when it comes to taxes, depending on the type of equity you have, you may be able to take some optimizations to reduce your tax bill. Here are the factors to consider: whether you have ISOs, NSOs, or RSUs, how long you've held the stock, the price at which you bought the stock, if there were options, and how much they're worth when you sell them, the state you live in, and your income bracket. There's a ton of moving pieces here that you need to keep track of. If you have ISOs, incentive stock options, you could save a lot of money on taxes by waiting to sell your stock 2 years after grant date and 1 year after exercise date. This will allow you to be taxed at the long-term capital gains rate instead of the likely higher short-term capital gains rate. If you have NSOs, you are already taxed on the spread at exercise, which is the difference between purchase and fair market value price. If you then wait to sell these for 1 year after exercise, you can save some money on taxes as well as get the long-term capital gains rate. For RSUs, you're taxed at the time of vesting, as the fair market value is considered part of your income. Then, when you go to sell, if you wait a year from vesting, you're taxed at the long-term capital gain rate based on the price at which you sell and the fair market value at the time of vesting. Basically, for these three types of equity, waiting a year from owning or vesting date allows you to potentially save money on taxes. However, waiting comes with risk and an emotional dilemma. Unfortunately, it's also extremely common for employees to be overconfident in their estimates of the company's performance. If you truly believe you work for one of the winners, the idea of holding on to all of your employees' stock might seem seductive. But even the likely winners can fall prey to a market decline or to some other unforeseen circumstance when you need the money. That's why we feel confident saying you are more likely to sleep well at night if you sell a little bit every quarter instead of hanging on to too much of that single concentrated position. And regarding your emotional well-being, a good selling plan will minimize regret. A great way to avoid worrying about when to sell is by automating the decision and not getting too caught up in forcing yourself to make too many decisions here. Avoid decision paralysis by coming up with a plan ahead of time. You're probably best served choosing how much stock you would like to sell up front and then committing to a schedule of selling the same amount of stock every quarter or so in the future. The amount to sell up front is usually a function of your skittishness over the current value of your stock and whether you need the money to make a significant purchase, like a house, in the short term. Post-IPO stock is known to be volatile, and at the heat of the moment, you're likely to make a rash decision. So plan ahead, and when you make that plan, stick to it. Thanks again. This is Tony from Wealthfront discussing equity. We'll see you next time.